All right. Welcome back to the Obvious Choice podcast. We've got a few things to talk about today. The first thing that I want to talk about is a good acronym that I put together. And it is a fantastic example of a trainer who went online. It was much harder than she initially thought. She had a much harder time standing out. She took for granted the brand that she had built in person and assumed that it would be easy online, but she's really starting from scratch. And what we came to is really, really cool about how she's going to stand out. So I want to share that with you. And then Len and I were just talking before we started to go live about this kind of problem that we're both seeing in the industry that, I don't know, it's probably going to get us into trouble talking about a little bit when Amber's not here to put the guide rails on, where I feel like we need to call people out on their shit a little bit more. I feel like we need to be a little bit less nice. I mean, I'm all for the body positivity movement and healthy at all sizes and stuff like that. But sometimes these people are just straight up not healthy. And, you know, to each their own. If that's how they want to live their life, that's cool. But I don't think that the way that society's trending, where we're telling people that it's all nice and happy and oh look, isn't this great, I don't think that's a particularly positive thing. So we're going to explore that a little bit and probably get ourselves into some trouble. Ren, how do you feel about that?
I'm just happy that you have a good acronym this episode. And can we review quickly because Jonathan had a shitty acronym last episode. So there's balance in the force, as they say.
I will. So we'll review it. It is the human optimized coaching sales system, HOCS, HOCS. And I actually wrote a line at the bottom of it. Oh, where was it? It was like at the end of one of the sections. Oh, it was near the end. So I've like finished the section on marketing for the book now. And near the end of it, because all of the marketing examples, basically, I revisit the HOCS acronym and talk about how they follow this exact same model. And then at the end of it, I just wrote, HOCS is a terrible acronym. If nobody's around you, say it out loud. It sounds awful. That's because the word human is in it. You try making an acronym with an H in it. It's hard. But you're a coach, which means you work with humans. And selling these days feels so friggin' inhuman. It shouldn't be that way. The H has to be there. Connecting with humans must be your foundation. And then I'm just going to add one more line. So, the acronym sucks. Deal with it.
That's the final line. I love, my favorite part of that is, if no one's around you, say it out loud. HOCS has become the fart of your book, Jonathan. Oh, you're muted, man. So Jonathan's saying something. Oh, he's speaking to a neighbor. Are you talking to the iguana? Is there
because I'm doing this outside and I'm at my mother-in-law's place, and the neighbor just basically asked me if it was possible to speak a bit quieter, and I said I'm done forever in 40 minutes. Right. So anyway, we're good. And so anyway, so that's my acronym. And so I edited the book a little bit there. But
I like that.
But today I'll start with this. This past summer, Allison and I decided that we didn't want to act our ages. And so we bought tickets to go to an electronic dance music festival. Okay. And it's called Veld, and it happens in Toronto over here. And the daytime DJs and the party during the day was wonderful. There was lots of room. We danced like silly teenagers. It was super, super fun. Then the nighttime hit, and Martin Garrix, who's a super famous DJ, took the stage. Okay. And we were joined by 40,000 screaming EDM fans in this hit. And so the noise from the speakers, right, mixed with like the screaming dancers all around us, was pretty deafening. So if I wanted to say anything to Allison, I needed to like yell into her ear. Right. And I could have yelled at the top of my lungs into her ear, and she would have like barely heard me. And the guy in front of me that was bumping into me as he was jumping up and down while struggling to do a line of coke off of the base of his thumb would not have been able to hear me yell.
Right.
And so, if you're in like a quiet space, anybody whispering is going to stand out. But if you're in the middle of a mosh pit at an EDM festival, you can yell as loud as you possibly could, and nobody's going to hear you, not even the guy in front of you. If you're the secret, to building a coaching business isn't to go to an already really noisy place and to try to yell louder or to yell more often. And so, I don't know. I mean, we left Feld early and got home by 10:30 p.m. And so I'll continue to try to not act my age, but I don't particularly like my odds. But
right.
The internet is actually full of quiet spaces, and finding them isn't that hard. But to do it, you've got to accept that you're probably really weird in some way. And there are others who are also kind of weird in that way. And that's kind of cool. So I want to give you an example of space, because we're talking about quiet spaces. And the example is Cassie, who freaking loves space.
Okay.
And so the acronym that I want to share with you, you ready for this, Ren?
I'm ready.
SNASA.
Okay.
It's NASA, but with an S. And the acronym stands for the Space Nerd Athleticism and Sexification Association.
Wait a minute. Go back and retread that for me.
Okay. The Space Nerd Athleticism and Sexification Association.
See, I think I saw this movie on Pornhub.
SNASA.
Oh my God. It rolls off the tongue better than Hawks. I've got to say that. There's no H, so that makes sense.
I might retire after this one.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe so, John. I think you're at the end of your acronym development here. I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot left in the old arm there, John. So
I think I'm getting better. I think I'm aging like a fine wine.
Well, this is slightly better than Hawks. I guess.
So there's two ways to become the obvious choice.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Both are an extent, and I'm going to talk about SNASA a little bit more, but both are an extension of trust, right? Way number one is to have a real life connection with a human. And that's undoubtedly the easiest way. We trust people we've met more than people we've never met. Mm-hmm. And we trust people who others we trust vouch for. So the easiest and fastest way to build a coaching business is always going to be through word of mouth, and usually begins local and sometimes extends online from there. Mm-hmm. So that's number one. The second way is to share a nerdy obsession with a person. And it's the fastest, the easiest, and really, I think, the only guaranteed way to make this work online. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is, celebrities and influencers aren't what they used to be. There's still, don't get me wrong, like there's still a few huge movie stars, but beyond that, if you think about it, celebrity is like very interest specific these days. I'd be willing to bet that you haven't even heard of 9 out of 10 of the biggest social media celebrities. And I'd also be willing to bet that even if you've heard of them, you don't care about them, and you wouldn't recognize them walking down on the street, because in your world, they don't exist. Mm-hmm. Right? In your world, there's others you revere, there's others you admire. And those people are unknown to most of you, but they're not unknown to you, because in your world, both online and in real life, these people are notable. You think about like the most like notable people in our kind of little bubble. I think about I don't know, choose a random one. Eric Cressy, right? Cressy's a legend.
So he Lee.
Sure.
Why not?
Walk down the street and ask 10 people if they've heard of either of those two people. 9.9999999.9 out of 10 of them are going to say no. Who's that? Mm-hmm. And so they're just kind of irrelevant, and you can't even talk about them to your family, most of your friends, because these people don't exist in their world, but they exist in your world, and to others like you that you geek out with. Because like the world that we live in right now is made up of an almost infinite amount of little markets. They're called filter bubbles. You can look up what a filter bubble is if you want to. It's a well-known phenomenon, and it's created by basically the actions that you take online creates your specific algorithm. Like what you see online is different from what I see online. What you search in Google is different from what I see. What you see on Netflix or social media is different from what I see, right? It's all interest specific. And so both online and offline, right, we're increasingly surrounding ourselves, both knowingly and unknowingly, in micro, just uber specific interest groups. And each of these groups has their own celebrities, has their own influencers. And each of these groups also has an immediate reason to trust other members of the group before anybody else they haven't met. And so if you market the 99% that makes you the same as everybody else by selling whatever, gardening advice, mindset, coaching, helping people lose fat, whatever, you're going to have a hell of a hard time finding clients, because generalized and undifferentiated services don't stand out. Now, if you have a personal connection to somebody, or somebody recommends you through somebody else you have a personal connection to, sure, you might get that business. But on the internet, to people who have never met you, you're the same as anybody else. And there's zero reason to pay attention to you at all, let alone choose you. And so if you want to stand out online, you got to focus on the 1% that makes you different. And here's the question that I'll kind of ask you is, what is it about you that you do behind closed doors that you're kind of embarrassed about, but in a group of people like you is like totally normal? So let me tell you about Cassie. So Cassie's into CrossFit. Her and her partner had 3 CrossFit boxes and they were voted the best in their city. And they decided to contract to 1 box. And that was just like to improve profits. And they wanted to build an online program as a way to expand and just have more freedom and flexibility. But they're having a way harder time. They're having way more time. They're having way more trouble online than they anticipated. Because when they were growing their like local CrossFit boxes, they benefited from local word of mouth. They became the go-to in their city, right? They were voted the best in their city. And so when they first initially launched online, there was a bit of an influx of customers, but then things dried up really, really quickly. And the reason is simple. Nobody outside of their community in Wappingers Falls, New York, knew who they were. In Wappingers Falls.
That's a place? Is that a real place?
That's a real place. That's actually where they were.
Okay.
Cassie is not the real name, but I used the real name of the place just because I thought that the name of the place was funny. So you could probably figure out who Cassie was pretty quickly. Anyway,
yeah, it's a funny
Wappingers Falls, New York. They had the best CrossFit boxes, right? Like, and so they're clearly special. Their local clients knew this, and they've spent over a decade building their local brand. But online, they're starting from zero. And they realized that online, they were just another fitness social media account in a sea of wannabe influencers.
Right.
And I actually want to talk you through the conversation that I had with Cassie, because it was just a fun conversation. But before we do that, what I want to dwell on that point a little bit, because I think a lot of trainers take for granted. There's so much talk about brand being built. And I think a lot of trainers take for granted the fact that they've actually been building their brand locally if they've been working for a very, very long period of time. And then when they start to go online, they take for granted what they built because they didn't really know that they were building it at the time. But you've actually been building a brand and reputation for, like, another mentorship student I was talking to yesterday, Bree, 16 years. 16 years locally. She's been building her reputation and her brand. And then she goes online and she's like, yeah, I'm not quite sure how to create content. And I don't really like creating content. You know, I'm more of a face-to-face person. It's kind of been a struggle online. It's like, well, like, I don't know, man. It just sounds kind of hard to start over after 16 years. Like, think about how many hours you have put in in those 16 years building your brand. Now you're going to start that new. Now, don't get me wrong, it wouldn't be the same number of hours because you'll do it like in a more dedicated way, or another 16 years because you'll do it in a more dedicated way. But like 16 years is a long ass time.
It's like being a senior in high school for a decade and then being a freshman in college all of a sudden in a different country. like you were the man or you were the woman for like a decade because you were a super duper senior. Obviously that's not going to happen, but it's that feeling of knowing everybody, everything, what's the best locker, which bathroom to go to get privacy. Right. All the cafeteria ladies know and love you, so they give you extra cafeteria food when it's lunchtime. You know the shortest route to get to every place in the school, and then they send you to Hogwarts, and you don't do magic.
And then that owl shows up.
That owl's weird, man. I don't like the. Can I just say that I'm not fond of the owl?
You're sitting there in that cupboard underneath the stairs.
Oh, don't put that image in my mind, Jonathan. A little bit of pee came out when you said that. But I get what you're saying, because now you're recrafting something in a different environment, in a different way. You can accelerate the progress because of the nature of the internet, but you just can't get by on your street cred from the 10 years of being a senior in high school in a different country. But it doesn't count.
Imagine the difference, though. I like your analogy, so I'm going to go with it. So imagine the difference between moving to a place after 16 years of building up a community and reputations, and then moving to a place where everybody else already has all of their friends and their networks and their businesses that are already established, and you're starting from scratch, versus going to a town kind of like these towns that I live in, where everybody is away from home, where everybody is starting from scratch, and you're building up along with them from scratch. That's the difference between going to Instagram generally and saying, I'm going to create content now, right? Everybody has already been doing that for a long time. And so now you're having to start from scratch in a place where other people have been doing it for a long time, versus finding this quiet space and building yourself up. Okay. So I called on Cassie in this hot seat call, and she didn't know I was going to call on her. So she was very nervous to be called on. And she said, I have stage fright, when we first spoke. And she was kind of like, a position where you can just tell. It's like the person was happy I was chatting to them, but they didn't quite know what to say. Right. And totally justifiable, totally fair. She didn't know I was going to call on her, and I chose her out of everybody that was on the call. Right. And she just said, I'm so very, very, very new. She was new to the mentorship. She's like 2 weeks in. That's why I'm so scared to talk right now. She said, I don't know the right thing to say or how to talk to people besides just being their friend. So she was nervous. She was shy. She was like unsure of herself. This was a new world. And she had no idea whether she was doing the right thing. She said, I've just posted my first 4 pieces of content. And like, content was a struggle. She felt stuck. Like I posted my first 4 pieces of content. Like, that's admirable. It's amazing. But like, it's your first 4 pieces of content. Like, you're going to feel stuck and you don't quite know what you're doing. Right. And so I want to actually like walk through just a tiny bit of the conversation, because it was really, really special what happened. So I asked her. You to do that. Yeah. Well, thank you. And
you're welcome.
Thank you, MC Tuck Tuck.
I'm supporting you fully in this explanation, and I'm eager to hear it. I just can't wait. Damn it. Go.
So I asked her. So I said, what's your secret nerdy obsession? And she didn't quite know what I was saying. She's like, what do you mean? So I just said, outside of fitness, is there anything that you do where you're like, man, I am unjustifiably obsessed with this thing? She immediately just smiled. She's like, oh my God, astrophysics and cosmetology. Okay. So immediately I was like, so okay, holy shit. I saw the craziest thing last week. And she actually interrupted me at this point. Oh no, I say, holy shit, I saw the craziest comet this last week. Right. So she perked up, she interrupted me. Right. So Cassie went from stage fright to excitedly interrupting me in probably less than 30 seconds. Right. She goes, "Did you see it?" She says. And so I said, "I want to ask you actually yet whether I actually saw it, because it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in the sky. We saw this thing. It was this light, but it was trailing a whole bunch of other lights," I said. And it went across the sky. I said, some spiritual guy on the beach said that it was an alien, but I'm pretty sure he was on drugs, so I don't actually believe him. And she kind of laughs. She's like, "It sounds like you saw the launch from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena," she said. And then she continued to tell me about what rocket launches look like in the sky. And she even correctly identified which direction it was moving. She's like, "It was traveling north, right?" It's like, "Yeah, it was traveling north." And so I just said, I was like, "So that's really good to know. But also, did you see what just happened here?" She goes, "Yeah, I got really excited." And she smiled and replied, "You have one competitive advantage online, which is you're unique and you're special and you're weird in some way. And we all kind of are. And the sooner you lean into this, the sooner you let your geek flag fly, the sooner you're going to stand out. Because we trust people who we share nerdy obsessions with. We trust people who we have uncommon things in common with. Cassie can help people gain muscle and lose fat. She could give it fancy words. She could film pretty videos. But at the end of the day, that's what you do, man. Like you don't do anything different than anybody else. Like, be honest with yourself. The majority of consumers just need to eat a bit less and move a bit more. And so I talk about that, later on in the book. I talk about how we probably all overestimate the importance of what we actually deliver in our program.
Right.
And so,
yes,
talking the same way as everybody else does, though, is it's safe. Like, it feels fine. But when you do it, there's no reason for anybody to pay attention with you online, let alone hire you over, like, I don't know how many people promote themselves as fitness professionals on Instagram right now. Like, what would you say, 50,000? I don't know. I said 10,000 plus, but like my guess is probably closer to 50 to 100,000. And
that might be low.
All of them say that they can help people do exactly what you do.
Right.
How many CrossFit coaches, though, do you think would have known that the lights that I saw in the sky traveling north wasn't a comet, but was the launch from the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena? Now, to Cassie, it was obvious, because to Cassie and to people who get Cassie, this kind of thing is common knowledge.
Right.
So imagine now if Cassie formed the Space Nerd Athleticism and Sexification Association. SNASA. Once formed, here's a few things that Cassie would do to make herself the obvious choice. Right?
I'm sorry. Please continue.
She'd give fun space names to all the exercises.
Absolutely.
So med ball slam, she would call big bangs. Or I kind of feel like hip thrust should just be called big bangs, but I don't know. It's maybe more of a stretch.
Whichever.
And then she would join online communities of cosmetology enthusiasts. And instead of joining these communities and saying, "Hey, I'm a personal trainer for astrophysicists and cosmetology enthusiasts," because if you ask people for business, they're going to give you advice. But if you ask people for advice, they're going to want to do business with you. And so what she would do is she would join online communities of cosmetology enthusiasts, and she would ask for input on naming workouts and exercises. And this would be a great way to crowdsource ideas and also get interest in SNASA. SNASA. It's a good acronym, man.
Each drink. snassa. When you're really thirsty, reach for a snassa. Or like, what do you kids want? More snassa, please. Like I can't get that out of my head. It's like
you want that purple
Ovaltine
stuff? You want that purple stuff? Or you want that snassa? I want that snassa.
Let me get the snassa. I love what you're saying here. And I don't know that first, I don't know if did you say cosmetology? Because I think that's hair. But I know what you're saying. I can't remember if the word is correct or not.
Cosmetology, actually, cosmets,
cometology. That's the one. That's the one. Because my sister was a cosmetologist and she didn't know shit about jet propulsion. But number two,
yeah, but she could make nice nails.
Yeah, she can make some nice nails though, man. And just the way she could do a flip, like the flip of the front bangs. Anyway, but this is what people struggle with, right? Like they jump as from your first example, they jump into the mosh pit and yell in each other's ears as close as they possibly can and wonder why nobody's listening. The noise is too great, right?
So it's the quiet room.
You want to be, and for God's sake, if a lady can make a living off of ski resort and skiing and snowboarding engagement photos,
yeah,
like your niche is not too small. Like there's enough of something for everybody.
So let me continue, because I've got 4 things that she would do to make herself the obvious choice, right? Number 1 is give fun space names to exercises.
Yes.
Number 2 is join online communities of different comet enthusiasts and ask for input on naming the workouts and exercises. Number 3 is to reach out to micro influencers in astrophysics and cosmetology and offer to train them for free, because she's a big fan,
Nice.
certified geek. And number 4 is she would share fun space inspired workouts for space blogs and magazines and stuff like that. And number 1 is, holy crap, see how much fun this could be? Like, I'm not even that into space and I kind of want to join SNASA.
Right.
And if she does it, like, I might actually join SNASA. But more than anything, and here's the point I want to hammer in. Did you notice how clear Kathy's path became once she leaned into her nerdy obsession? The program she markets, the words she uses, the people she speaks to, the community she engages with, the publication she works with to become an expert on, and her unique angle all became clear within minutes. She's vision. Armed with that vision, she's got direction and focus, which also means that she's not going to be pulled away by bad advice. That's bad advice for you, but good advice for other people from social media experts. She's going to be able now, with that vision, she's going to be able to have that filter to be able to figure out what to listen to and what not to listen to. And so anything else you want to talk on there until I kind of transition this into like more into that vision kind of idea?
Oh, that was period.
Yeah. Anything else you want to hit on that bit before I talk more about like the vision bit?
I just want to say for the listeners out there who are providing any service via social media that is meant to be non-local, right? Everything becomes so much more clear for you when you define exactly who it is that you're talking to and what that nerdy thing is. Like that one, I mean, we say it all the time in the Online Trainer Academy.
It's the big fish in the small pond.
Big fish in the small pond.
Right. Whether that's online or in person is the same thing.
This happened with another a coach that I'm mentoring, was struggling with content, found out that he was a gamer and he also liked sort of the nerdy sort of Dungeon and Dragons type thing, God of War games on the internet. And now he's just firing off content. Get arms like Kratos.
This was the arms like Kratos, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it just and when you know that you've hit it, you have that Cassie moment, right?
Yeah,
where you just start firing things off. You just get excited, and
you know what it feels like. You know what it feels like.
What does it feel like?
Most people who are doing the social media thing, it's like as if they were to log on. It's like if they were to like turn on Mortal Kombat, and they don't know how to use the controls yet, but they choose super hard mode. And then
Right.
Liu Kang kicks the shit out of them with those flying kicks.
Right.
Once you figure this out, what you do is you start the game on super easy, and then you just stay on super easy mode, and you kill that. What's that guy with all the arms?
I can't remember. It's been too long. But I know you're talking about the tall, bald guy's got like 4 arms, shirtless. I can't remember his name.
This is important. I gotta look this up. Keep the
All right,
people entertained.
We'll talk amongst ourselves, Jonathan. While Jonathan looks up an inane reference to a 90s video game to find out one character's name. We're gonna put the podcast on hold here. But seriously, for you guys listening out there, don't minimize what you like in an effort to do what you think people want. Shortest, fastest road to failure in the online space. Because you've got something that you like to do, that you like to talk about, that makes it easy for you to talk about things. And if you can cross apply wellness to that, because of the cross applies to almost anything,
I got his name.
Makes it so much. Okay, good.
Goro, Goro.
I never would have remembered that.
He was the hardest boss, but he was never the boss.
He was
like
never
the boss was like that Shang. How do you pronounce his name? Shang Zhun, the guy who can take everybody else's powers. But
you know,
once you beat Goro, 90s, you know you beat the game.
Right. The 90s gaming was an era where the sub boss was always the hardest one. The next to the last guy was always the hardest one. It's like they reward you with an easy victory at the end. But I digress. So Vision. You're about to talk about Vision.
Right. This quote I want to start with. This is by an essayist and a New Yorker cartoonist, Timothy Crider, who I love his work. Here's what he says. I can't help but wonder whether all this histrionic exhaustion isn't a way of covering up the fact that most of what we do doesn't matter. Yes, I know we're all very busy, but what exactly is getting done? Are all these people running late for meetings and yelling on their cell phones, stopping the spread of malaria or developing feasible alternatives to fossil fuels or making anything beautiful? I'll say it. I'm not busy. I am the laziest, ambitious person I know. I love that quote. It was a great essay that he wrote called Lazy, a Manifesto. It's fantastic. It's a fantastic piece of writing. The secret isn't working more. It's just getting better at choosing what to do. If you can't fit everything you need to do into your week, you don't need some time management hack or app or any shit like that. You need to get better at picking what to do. Because most of what we think we have to do, we don't actually have to do. Anxiety, overwhelm, it doesn't result from the amount of work we have to do. It's the result of not knowing whether the work that we're doing is making any damn difference. And the worst part about this is that without a vision, you're actually unable to identify whether you're doing the right thing, even if you are doing the right thing. If you were to actually stumble on the right kind of work to be doing, it would still feel like a waste and feel frustratingly aimless. Then you go to bed, you'd wonder what the heck you accomplished that day, and then you do something different the next day. So the secret to all of this overwhelm isn't trying to do more stuff. It's actually to have a vision. The vision could be local, right? We talked about Janet a couple episodes back with her WhatsApp group of ladies who play bridge. Remember the one who invited my mom to, my mom was invited to her workout group by somebody she plays bridge with. And this woman, Janet, doesn't even have an email, let alone a website or social media account. Just a single WhatsApp group of ladies who use it to book bridge games. And then she uses it to organize their workouts. Right? Or it could be online, like Cassie with NASA. Or it could be like any of an almost infinite amount of ways to become the obvious choice, all by becoming a big fish in a small pond, which, by the way, is a damn good name for the book.
Big Fish, Small Pond?
That's a good name for the book.
I like the obvious choice, man.
No, I like Big Fish and Small Pond.
Well, teach his own. I mean, you are a snastronaut, so you might know better. I've never been a snastronaut. So what the hell do I know?
Snastronaut. Oh, I want to be a snastronaut so bad.
I'm gonna get a shirt that says Fitness Jones trading on the front, and on the back it says Snastronaut. It's just like...
I'm gonna message Cassie Cassie's actual name is Christina. I'm going to message Christina and I'm going to be like, because I've been like, as I'm writing this, I'm like, by the way, I came up with the perfect name for your program. SNASA, the Space Athleticism and Sexification Association. And then I sent her a message of Allison telling Calvin that we didn't actually see a comet and that it was just a spaceship. And he was like so upset. He's like, oh, she's like, well, it's still pretty cool, isn't it? He's like, yeah, I guess. So I'm gonna message her now and be like, oh my God, everybody who's a member of your group calls themselves a snastronaut.
We're doing groundbreaking work here on the Obvious Choice podcast. We're solving real world issues in an hour or less. You're welcome, planet.
Oh my God. Oh my God. So here's how I'm gonna end this. All right.
Okay.
Here's how I'm gonna end this, and then
bring it home.
And then we can do it.
Bring it home.
Here's the analogy I've come to. Having a vision for your business is kind of like reading Twitter your entire life and then discovering there's such a thing as books. The world immediately stops being scary and overwhelming and frustrating and starts to make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. I like it. This is a good chapter, John. But how do you feel about it? What are your thoughts about this chapter? You know, and looking back on the chapter, like what are your thoughts? This is my favorite so far, I think.
Which, the SNASA?
Yeah, just this whole thing. You know, what you sort of rolled out over the last 2 days. Two recordings.
I have been very surprised at how strongly I feel about this idea and how much everything else is irrelevant, which has been kind of a kick in the ego nuts.
Right.
It's actually been really difficult because a lot of what I've been doing and teaching for the last 10 years, I no longer agree with. And that's part of evolution for sure. I mean, as we learn more, and also as the world changes, but I no longer agree with. I think I was fundamentally wrong in my assertion. And that's really hard. That's really, really hard for me to reconcile. But I also don't think that I can really fight it. And so the process of writing this, particularly the marketing section of this, has been a really, really neat growth exercise for me because it's clarified for me so much of my own thoughts. And also this, I mean, the minute that I wrote down that framework, the HOCS framework, everything fits into it. Everything that works fits into it. And all the stuff that overwhelms us and frustrates us, or we feel like we're doing a lot of work and getting nowhere, all of that opposes it. And so
shouldn't that happen though?
It's been a very pleasant surprise how it's come together and how much it aligns. I did not think that that would be the case when I started writing the book. And I don't think that I've been, you know, the worry whenever you write these things is that it's very hard not to be selective and biased and only choose things that fit your mold and ignore things that don't. And I've seen lots of examples of that with other nonfiction books where you're kind of like, yeah, I feel like you kind of have a point, Mr. Author. But I also feel like there's a lot of situations this doesn't work in and this isn't true. And you're kind of cherry picking stuff that kind of makes your point and ignoring things that don't. And I don't think that I am here. I think I'm being very fair to the topic. And I'm happy about that. And then I did not, I mean, I obviously wanted that to be the case, but I was worried that I would be forced either into cherry picking to support my hypothesis and philosophy, or I'd figure out that there really wasn't a book here. And if I was going to have to cherry pick stuff that supports it and ignore stuff that doesn't, I'm not really making a point with making, am I? But the key differentiator, I think, Ren, was the minute that I kind of made that, the minute that I really just wrote down that line, it's like, the game of being an influencer is very different than the game of building a coaching business. And neither one is better than the other. But they're different games with different rules. And if you try to play one game, you have to play within the rules of that game. And the minute that I said that, a lot of things kind of started to become clear. Then it was like, okay, this is not a book on how to be an influencer. Right? Those books are fine. There's nothing wrong with those books. There's nothing wrong. But a lot of the advice that you get is really well-intentioned, often quite good advice on how to be an influencer. The problem is coaches are taking that advice and trying to build coaching businesses with it.
Yes.
And that's where they're going wrong. It's good advice is not necessarily good advice for you. And that's where I'm really happy how this is coming together.
These are great points. I see this happening in real time. I've got 2 coaching friends that I can think of right now who obviously have shifted to the influencer route and are struggling with their coaching business. And again, I see it happening in real time, going from less advisement, less teaching, into more slow motion, 60 frames per second videos of them working out, the whole deal, right?
Which is fine.
It's beautiful visually.
They want to, if they've made a decision that that's what they want to do, you can't make it like if you decide to play a game, you have to accept all of the elements of that game,
right?
Which means in this case, the elements of that game also have to do with monetization. If you are playing that game, you're effectively playing a game as an entertainer.
That's exactly right.
And
exactly right.
How you monetize an entertainment business is very different than how you monetize a coaching business. You can't build entertainment. Maybe you can, but it's way harder. It takes way longer. It's very, very difficult to build entertainment and play that game and then try to what am I trying to say? You can't just pick out the good parts of each game.
Yeah.
You have to accept all of the parts of that, of the game.
This is true. And I think people try to go back and forth too much. Also, I think the name of the book should be Snastronaut, The Evolution of Jonathan Goodman. Just don't decide yet. Wait till the podcast airs. Think about it.
No words. Just let it settle.
Become one with it. Snastronaut, The Evolution of Jonathan Goodman. I can see the cover now, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
I'm gonna put some purple
cover.
drink on that cover.
Yeah. Some purple drink. So, Jonathan, we haven't. What's our other topic? I'm tired of snassering around.
That's it. We're done. Podcast out.
You're a snasshole. Okay, we good?
Snasshole. Podcast not out. We're still going. Snasshole. Oh my God. People who are, oh my God, this is so good. People who are like comet deniers are snassholes.
Snasshole.
Oh my God.
I've lost all track of time.
There's too much. There's too much here. Okay, podcast out. We can't do this anymore. This is too good.
Okay. All right. Sit. What time is it? Oh yeah, it is time.
It's time.
It's
now.
about 45 minutes of fire for the listeners. Well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for being here. It's been an entertaining interview for me, and I hope to have you back on the podcast sometime soon. But not this year. Give it a year.
Podcast out. Bye, everybody.